Welcome to this explainer on the magnificent world of ancient Indian manuscript paintings. Think of this as a time machine, uncovering how epic stories, religious texts, and really profound ideas were visually preserved centuries before the printing press even existed. Today, we're going to do a comparative analysis to see how wildly different artistic languages developed across different regions of India. Let's get right into it.
Right off the bat, let's clear up a massive misconception. When a lot of us think of ancient Indian art, we immediately picture those huge, sprawling murals on cave walls, like the ones at Ajanta. But miniature paintings were a completely different beast. They were intimate, handheld, small-scale translations of poetry and epic texts. They were meticulously crafted to be viewed up close, held right in your hands. Actually, they were never intended to be framed or put up on walls at all.
So here's our roadmap for this explainer. We'll start with an intro to Indian manuscript art. Check out the ancient Chitra Sutra rules and then compare the Pala style in the East with the Jain style in the West. Finally, we'll look at the fusion of indigenous and Persian art and wrap up with the historical importance of the colophon.
Jumping right into Section 1, Introduction to Indian Manuscript Art Beyond the Murals.
Now you might be wondering, if these artworks weren't painted on massive walls, how exactly were they created, stored, and transported across entire empires? Well, it all comes down to the materials. Picture this, treated palm leaves stacked together with a string running right through the center of the pages. They'd sandwich these delicate leaves between sturdy wooden covers called patlis, wrap the whole bundle in cloth, and store them in the grand libraries of kings and monasteries. It was essentially the ancient world's highly portable hard drive.
Moving on to Section 2, the ancient Chitra Sutra and rules, the true foundation of Indian art.
Artists back then weren't just winging it. They had a literal rulebook to follow. This is the 5th century text known as the Chitra Sutra, found within the Tada-patra Purana. It laid out the Pratima Lakshana, or the 6 canons of painting. We're talking strict guidelines for everything. You had Rupeda for looks, Pramana for exact measurements and proportions, Bhava for expressions, Lavanya Yojana for aesthetic composition, Sadrishya for resemblance, and Varnikabhanga for exact brush and color use. These rules were the shared artistic DNA that provided a foundation for all the regional styles we're about to explore.
All right, Section 3. Let's look at the Pala style, which is Eastern India's Buddhist legacy.
Imagine traveling to eastern India during the 11th and 12th centuries. Under the Pala dynasty, grand monasteries like Nalanda weren't just religious centers, they were massive hubs of learning. Here, artists of the Pala school primarily used palm leaves to depict Vajrayana Buddhist deities. The main takeaway for this style is its subtle elegance. We're talking incredibly soft, sinuous flowing lines and very subdued, muted color tones. And because monks and pilgrims were constantly traveling, this gentle artistic style was highly portable. It spread like wildfire to places like Nepal, Tibet, and Sri Lanka before those monasteries were unfortunately destroyed in the 13th century.
Now for Section 4, the Jain style, representing Western India's golden era.
Let's flip the map and head over to the wealthy trade hubs of Western India, specifically Gujarat and Rajasthan. Prosperous merchant patrons there funded a completely different artistic movement. As you can see, they started with palm leaves in the 11th century too, but by the 14th century, a massive technological leap, the introduction of paper. Paper provided a much larger, more forgiving canvas. This sparked an absolute explosion of creativity between 1350 and 1450, which basically represents the peak of the Jain painting tradition.
And man, the contrast with the Pala style is wild. Just a total visual explosion of color. We're talking lavish, almost aggressive use of bright reds, deep blues from lapis lazuli, and pure gold. A direct flex of those merchant patrons' immense wealth. Also, you simply cannot miss the signature feature of the Jain style. A thin, wiry outline and a highly stylized further eye that literally protrudes out into space beyond the profile of the face. It's incredibly distinct.
So let's quickly put these two side by side because grasping this divide is absolutely crucial. East versus West. The Palace School gave us Buddhist themes on palm leaves, utilizing soft, flowing lines and subdued colors. Meanwhile, the Jain School in the West shifted to paper, favoring thin, wiry lines, that quirky protruding eye, and super bold, bright colors heavy on the gold. Two totally different visual languages thriving in the exact same subcontinent.
That brings us to Section 5, Indigenous and Persian Fusion, looking at art in transition. Because, art never just stays still. As political power shifted with the arrival of the sultanates in regions like Gujarat and Mandu, the canvas shifted yet again. We hit this fascinating era where traditional indigenous styles started mingling with brand new foreign influences. A perfect example? The Nemet Nama. It's an early 16th century book of delicacies, basically a royal recipe book. In it, you literally see indigenous Indian figure types seamlessly blending with Persian color palettes, decorative landscapes, and sultanate architectural features like prominent domes. It's an amazing visual record of a society in cultural transition.
And finally, Section 6, the historical importance of the colophon or pushpika.
Now you might be wondering, how on earth do modern historians actually know the exact dates, patrons, and locations for all these scattered artifacts? The secret weapon is a very specific page called the colophon, or pushpika in Hindi. Think of it as the ancient world's metadata. It's a dedicated page in the manuscript that explicitly lists the patron's name, the artist or scribe, the exact date of completion, and where it was commissioned. When historians find a colophon, it's literally like striking gold, because it anchors the artwork perfectly in history.
But here's the tragic reality. Remember how these manuscripts were essentially just loose pages wrapped in cloth? They were incredibly fragile. Over the centuries, they had to survive fires, humidity, and just terrible mishandling. And guess which pages usually got torn off or went missing first? Yep, the very first or last pages, exactly where the colophons were usually located. Because of this missing metadata, reconstructing India's art history remains a phenomenal puzzle, with scholars often forced to guess dates based purely on the painting style alone.
Which leaves us with a pretty profound thought to wrap up this explainer. We've seen how much knowledge was lost just because a single fragile leaf of paper or palm met a fire or a bit too much humidity. It kind of makes you wonder, if the elements so easily erased the physical colophons and timestamps of our ancestors, just how resilient is our own digital record today? How will the digital manuscripts of our modern era be preserved for historians trying to piece our lives together centuries from now? Thanks for joining me on this incredible exploration of the manuscript tradition.